What's going on, everybody? This is the host of Recover Out Loud podcast, Sean Young. Before we dive in, I want to be clear. I'm not a medical professional. I'm not here to diagnose or treat. I'm simply a catalyst, someone who's walked through the fire and now speaks from experience, reflection, and a deep desire to help others find their way forward. This podcast may include honest conversations about addiction, mental health challenges, and suicidal thoughts or ideations. These are real parts of the human experience, and we won't shy away from them. If you're listening, please do so with self-care and self-awareness. And if you're struggling, please reach out. There's help out there. And most importantly, there's hope. Viewer discretion is advised. Now let's get it. What's going on, everybody? Welcome to Recover Out Loud, episode 107. Today is a really awesome episode. I'm super excited about our guest that we have today. Today we have John Shaw Templeton from New Zealand. How you doing, John?
Doing really good, Sean. Thanks for having me here.
Hey, thanks for taking a moment to spend with me and share your story and your experience, man. It's an awesome one, and I'm ready for everybody to hear it. So, John, would you like to? Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, you carry on. You want me to introduce myself?
Yeah.
I'm John Templeton. First off, everyone, thank you for being here, and Sean, thank you for having me. It's as someone trying to get their message out and a message that's meaningful to a lot of people. It's people like you that allow people like me to do that. So much gratitude for you. I am an author and a coach. Take from that what you will. I've spoken on stages next to some of the people I looked up to: Tony Robbins, Deepak Chopra, John DeMartini, Robin Sharma. I was in the military for 7 years. I finished my career as the physical training instructor for the Special Forces. I've done quite a lot. I did well financially early on in life. Got into investing when I was in the military, actually, and that set me up. But it also messed me up, which we'll talk about, I'm sure, in the show. I've trained Olympic athletes, professional athletes, sports teams, and I've run events in Australia, New Zealand, Bali, just helping people with their psychology, with their mind and emotions. And the reason I can talk about it so I want maybe eloquently is because not only have I studied it and researched it from the psychological perspective, but I've also been through it. I've been depressed, I've been suicidal, and a lot of the help that even I got was not effective. And it took me through a spiritual journey to find myself, to figure out who I was, to find the answers. And I would love to share that. That's what I am sharing. That's what I've written a book recently, and that's what that's about. So yeah, here I am.
That's awesome. I find it so important to have people who on the show who've been through it, right? Because doctors and counselors who haven't been through it can talk about the book answer, but the experience, in my opinion, is so much more vital to sharing, the experience, because that's what brings us all together, right? Like I would have never known who John Templeton was had you not say, "Hey, man, let's jump on the show," and I dived into some of your story, and I find a lot that I can relate to, and so I'm glad to have you here. And I'm glad to have you on the show. Before we do dive into your story, you're the first person I've ever met from New Zealand. Like, this is pretty
It's a small
awesome.
country.
It is, and I look, when I think of New Zealand, I think of Taika Waititi, the producer of in Hollywood and
Yes.
stuff. Yeah,
Yep.
yeah, I think him and Korg from Thor, the word Love and Thunder, and
So yeah, so tell me a little bit about New Zealand.
I was born in England. But my mother she was a Kiwi. She was born in New Zealand. So when I was 10 years old, my parents divorced when I was young, but when I was 10 years old, my mum wanted to move back to New Zealand. She won custody. The family moved here. My father stayed in England. He's still there now. And so at 10 years old, we grew up here. It's a small country. We're talking 6 million people ish. It is beautiful. It's raw and beautiful. Like the coastline is just, because it's an island and it's a thin island, from coast to coast is not far. There are some points where it's, almost touching. But it's a small, humble little country. We do well at sport. We've got a very grassroots attitude here. So that's why the All Blacks are probably the best rugby team on earth, or at least the most well known. We also hold our own with cricket, very good cricket team. Netball, the women's Silver Ferns, very well known. So it's a very grassroots country, quite a humble country. Lots of farmers. Sheep is sort of a well-known aspect of the New Zealand countryside, and everybody grows up pretty, I want to say, pretty tough. I was hunting as well when I joined the military at 17, and yeah, massive hunting culture. So we just spend a lot of time in the bush, a lot of time barefoot. So it breeds, like, I want to say, like, strong, grounded people.
Yeah.
But there's the downside to New Zealand. Economically, it's not thriving, I would say. And as an entrepreneur, it's a slow moving machine. And we were talking about veterans before, and that I might be going down to this church to help some veterans out.
Yeah.
The pastor of the church, when she wrote an email to me, she said, New Zealand's behind the times with support for veterans. And I actually said to her, look, I think it's a global problem. I don't think it's New Zealand. Although I would say the US is at the forefront of most things, so there's probably some okay programs out there. But yeah, we're just it's a bit slow and behind the times. But if you want to see raw nature and beauty, it's great. And I've heard that a lot of billionaires have bought properties here for the apocalypse, because it's just so far away from everything.
Yeah, yeah, I can imagine. I can imagine. It sounds, all intents and purposes, it sounds perfect. It's secluded, humble roots, growing up strong, and you've got everything you need there for the most part.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, but yeah, I think you brought it up. We're really, the whole world's behind the times on like treatment of veterans and stuff like that. And yeah, America is in the forefront of it, and I really wish that like the world, we could come together and be like, how do we treat veterans? How do we treat combat veterans? How do we treat some of these men and women that or in special groups, special forces, Rangers, what have you, Delta Force, because that's a whole separate entity than the rest of the army or the military in general. And so I really wish like there was one world. I wouldn't say government because that's horrible, but one world kind of like thought process of how do we treat veterans so that they get the most out of it and they're not treated as second-rate citizens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The unfortunate truth, I think, is that I'll say this. One, I agree with you. That would be fantastic. The unfortunate truth is the machine of the world is driven economically, right? Economy, like money and power. And once you've been used as a soldier, it's like they don't care. They don't,
Yeah.
you don't matter. Economically, it just doesn't make sense to put money into a broken veteran or someone broken. It's from their perspective, it's a bad investment. And so it does take people um like you to take the reins and take charge and start to make the changes that you're not seeing happening from above. And I think it's, in a way, it's empowering. we talked before the show, and you said the biggest transformation of your life was realizing that everything was your responsibility. And I that's one thing I cannot agree with more. It's just the moment, that day that you decide that everything in your life is up to you, to change. I think for everybody, but specifically veterans, drug addictions, whatever it is, that you can't help someone that won't help themselves. So it doesn't matter if the government has this incredible program, unless someone is willing to take responsibility for their life, it's not going to change. And so in a way, I say not having that support there can also be a blessing, because it gives you an opportunity to stand on your own 2 feet. And I don't want to take away from anyone, because I know how hard it is. I'm not saying, like, you know, get on with it, get over it. I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying if you can change your perspective and go, maybe this is an opportunity for me to get back up on my feet, then I truly believe the purpose of life is it's not how far you go, or how high you climb, I should say. It's that you make progress. And so it doesn't matter if you have been given everything in life. If you've been given everything in life and you move 2 centimeters, if you've been given nothing in life and you move 2 miles, like, that's, to me, it's that's commendable. So I don't care how high someone climbs. I care about, are they making progress? And what is fulfilling, I believe, is progress. So it doesn't matter if you're on the street, you're homeless, your life is just shit. If you do one thing in your day that is a step towards something better, I that's going to give you the tingles. That's going to give you the, like, I'm on my path. Even if you're just cleaning yourself up from the streets, like, those tingles are your soul saying, yes, you're on your path. And there are some people who have it all and they are not on their path. They are not on their path. They're chasing the wrong things. They're not chasing something fulfilling and meaningful. They're chasing something superficial and transient. And so I think it's a blessing to take your situation wherever you are and go, you know what? I don't care what hand I've been dealt. I'm going to do something with it. I'm going to play this game, because your soul will come through you and you'll start to really lift yourself up, just millimeter by millimeter.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. I feel like a lot of people are so far away from their purpose in life. And it really all depends on what their purpose really is, what it looks like for them. But I feel like so many people are so set back from their purpose that even a step forward would make them feel like, oh goodness, this is the best thing that's ever happened to me. And when you really step in your purpose and you're on that path that you're supposed to be on, there's going to be roadblocks, but they're not going to be mountains, and that's what I found in my journey, is that um, everything is achievable, and it's only a matter of time. It doesn't have to happen right now, because it's not in my time, it's in the universe's time. And speaking of that, and speaking of kind of picking up the reins, there's something that I'm working on for the States that could be completely revolutionary, at least for, veterans and people that are looking for holistic healing. So that's gonna come, and I don't want to spoil the surprise, but it's gonna be really awesome. It's gonna be super revolutionary. Um, but John, so what made you want to join the New Zealand military?
I remember vividly. I didn't growing up. I was a boy. I liked guns and video games and shooting, and that was great. And then, like a lot of men during my teenage years, it was drugs and alcohol and women. And those drugs escalated. It started with cannabis and then went through, and then I was smoking methamphetamine as well. It got bad. One of my friends committed suicide, and in the back of my mind, I knew this was not like a great life, that I wasn't making good decisions. Essentially, I knew it, but I was just so caught up in being accepted by my peer group that I continued. And then one night I was high, and I called my dad, who was in England, or he called me. I talked to him maybe every month, And I remember I couldn't string a sentence together, and I wasn't that coherent. And I really admired my dad, moralistically on point, and he had done so much for me just to be there as a father, even from halfway across the world. And so I hung up the phone, and I said to myself, I've got to change my life. Like, this is not okay what I'm doing. And I didn't know how I would do it because I didn't really have any aspirations. I was just taking drugs and fitting in with my peer group. There was nothing I was aiming towards. The next day, completely out of the blue, a friend of mine called me. I hadn't talked to him for about 6 months. Now, he knew I had fallen into the drug path, and we were chatting. And back when we were at school, we used to play video games together, war-based video games, and everybody sort of knew us as these two guys that loved war video games. And he told me he was joining the army. And the moment he said it, I just got goosebumps all over my body. And I just lit up. I was like, this is my freaking ticket out of here. This is my opportunity. And I said to him, I'll join. What's the number? Give me the number. I'll join with you. And he said, no, you won't. You're a drug addict. Like, give it up. I was like, give me the number. So he gave me the number. I got off the phone. I was 16 at the time. I didn't tell my parents. I just called the recruitment office and said, give me all the info. I want to come. I had to go and do my testing, like psychological testing. So I had to tell my mum. She drove me. I told my mum. She drove me. Did all of that. Got accepted. The night before going into basic training, I got blind drunk and punched my friend. And I snapped my own wrist. Like, talk about karma. Snapped my own wrist the night before. Went to hospital, blind drunk, and I was like, I'm still going. Anyway, that was a delusion. So I missed that intake. My friend went in, and then 3 months later, I joined. So that was, it was my ticket out of a life that was pretty destructive. And I remember, I don't know how it is in the US for you in the military, but basic training, there's like in the barracks, there's a corridor, and the NCOs or the officer will be in the end room, and he can see right down the whole corridor, and our barrack rooms sort of come off the sides. And I can't remember what they would say, but they would yell something, and we'd all have to go in line and stand at attention, sort of all up the corridor. And they did that, and it was the first mail run, like delivery of mail. We'd maybe been there for a week or two, and I was the very first person to receive a letter. And so, for a bit of fun, I can't remember who it was, whether it was an officer or a sergeant or something, said, all right, open it up, read it out loud to everybody, expecting it to be, a cute message from my mom or something. But it was from a friend, and another one of my friends had committed suicide. And I was reading that in front of everyone, and I saw it, and I just broke down. I ran straight into the barrack room, and I was just bawling my eyes out. But that sort of summed up the reason I joined the army, to get away from that.
That's a real rough life to get away from, and I'm glad you escaped it. Not everybody can, and I'm glad that you did. And that's going to be a hard way to find out about your friend. And I'm sorry you had to go through that.
Yeah, it was rough. But you know what it also did? It allowed me to be vulnerable in front of 100 soldiers, and they were there for me. And so right from the start, it was a supportive environment, and that was, in a way, my introduction to being a soldier and the community and brotherhood you have.
Yeah, that is pretty awesome. I know that the male culture in America, like in the military, is like pop your chest out, pum, 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 you know what I mean, and like don't show emotion. You show emotion when you shut the door, and that was, and that's kind of like the culture that I grew up in, and breaking that cycle of like I'm able to feel emotion and show emotion in front of other men is it was kind of freeing. It was very freeing for me. So what was your job in the army?
I joined as a tanky. So I fired the cannon in an armored vehicle, not a
Mhm.
tank, even though I was in the armored corps. But it was in the 25 millimeter cannon in the LAV. But during so basic training you all do together, and then you branch off and do your core training. As a tanky, we still had to do infantry core training. So all of the infantrymen and the tankies went away for 6 months of infantry core training. During that, I really loved the infantry work. I loved being a grunt. So I went and did my tanky training, and within 6 months, we were out in the field, and I saw all the infantrymen on the ground. And I just said, I don't like being in this tank. I want to be digging holes in the ground. And everyone thought I was mad. Like, you're taking a step backwards, dude. But that's what I wanted. I really admired the Special Forces guys, and I saw that as a pathway. So I changed core to the infantry, and I spent a couple of years there. And then I went to the reconnaissance and sniper platoon. So I spent a year there, got deployed to East Timor, spent 7 months on operations there. And then after that, I took a year's leave without pay and did some travel. I went back to see my dad in the UK, and I went around Europe and sort of North Africa. And I wanted to be in the SAS. That's what I wanted. New Zealand has a brilliant special forces. I really wanted to be in the SAS, and that was where I was heading. But after I did that year's worth of travel, I thought, fuck, there's a whole life out here I could live in this world. And I don't know if going into like a clandestine unit hidden away from the world is really suited to my personality, which was a bit more extroverted. And so I decided not to. And I decided to do the physical training instructor selection process, which is very tough. Only 2 of us finished, myself and one other, but it's different tough. So special forces selection is endurance based. Don't eat, don't sleep, and like drag your ass around for how resilient are you? Physical training instructor selection is 4 days, not 7. Our special forces is 7 for the selection process, 7 to 9. And it was 4 days, but it's more intense. They give you food, but then they thrash you, and they thrash you, and they thrash you. And that's more, it's like, how fit are you, not how resilient are you? Although, as you can imagine, 4 days. In those 4 days, I got hypothermia twice and hypothermia once, like heat exhaustion, fainted. So it's intense. There was one bit, the second time I got hypothermia, we had to jump into a lake. It's a big dam. It's called Lake Mofunga. It's in a place called Waihuru in New Zealand. It's mountains with ice, snow, and that snow runoff comes down into the lake. And we had to go into this lake. There was me and this other guy, and we had to dive under. There was a message in a bottle on the bottom of the lake, and we had to spend 20 minutes in this freezing cold water. It wasn't obviously freezing because it was water, but it was the ice cold runoff, so only a few degrees. And we were duck diving down, searching the bottom, and your whole body is just numb because you can't feel it. And then when we got out of the water, if anybody knows New Zealand, it's the windiest country on earth. That wind just cut straight through me, and I just started to cramp up, and then my shivering stopped, and I just went downhill fast. So that it was wild. And the hypothermia was about an hour later. So I had hit the bottom. They had got me back alive, and then we had to set up an abseil rig and abseil down off the dam wall on the dry side to recover a bicycle. And then we had to get this bicycle, and then it was a 10K bike ride. There was only 2 of us, but one bike. So one had to run, one rode the bike. It was just 10 kilometers up this winding hill. It's called the Five Fingers. It's kind of like this hill that just zigzags back 5 times. And again, if you know New Zealand, you get every single season in one day. So now it's blaring hot. The sun's out, and I'm running up this hill, just dehydrated, absolutely screwed. Get to the top, make it. My eyes roll back in my head. And the medic came in and gave me, I think he gave me an aspirin or something, but he gave me a Powerade. Do you know what a Powerade is? It's like a Gatorade type drink. And one mouthful, I just went, and I woke up in the back of, it's called a Unimog. It's like a big truck. And off we went again. And I said to him, because the guy I was with, he was tougher than me. Like, I'm not going to lie. Fantastic dude. I said to him, like, how did you not go down the way I went down? And he said, dude, I was 1 second away from going down, but because you went down first, that I got to stop and rest. And that was really relieving, because I thought he was, I thought he was really Superman, but I was at the absolute limits. It was cool.
That is insane. That is absolutely wild. I can't imagine. I don't think I would want to do that. Period. Just like personal, I wouldn't want to do that at all. I wouldn't. I'm a glutton for pain, but not that much.
Yeah, I mean, I would never do it again now. I have nothing to prove. I have
No.
absolutely nothing to prove anymore. But back then I really did. Everything that drove me back then was about being the best, winning, and that is just, that came from a deeper feeling of not feeling good enough, not feeling worthy. When I started exploring my emotions years later, I realized that a lot of my success was just driven from not feeling grounded inside, not feeling like I was valuable.
Absolutely, absolutely. And now, so the Special Forces training instructor, you become Special Forces training instructor. What were you able to do in that position to help change the atmosphere of the Special Forces?
It's interesting. So after the selection process, you go away for 9 months training to become a physical trainer. I topped that course, so I was top student, and that's what sort of got me in to be posted to the Special Forces camp. But you probably found this too, maybe you didn't. it's like you can't teach an old dog new tricks. And so we were young and fresh coming through, and we had learned we were learning from outside just what we were being taught by the military. We had the internet, so we could read and research things. CrossFit was coming up, and I got into CrossFit, and I tried to bring that in, but it just got squashed. It kept getting squashed from above. They just wanted to stick to what they knew, and I get it. It was just, it stopped evolution. So I couldn't bring too much new in. I loved. I got quite strong, so I did a lot of strength training with the guys. And my superior, he didn't like that. I don't know. I was shining a little bit, and he didn't like it. And he slammed me, and that's why I left the military. I didn't deserve to be treated the way I was treated when I got there. So I got to the camp, and it wasn't the guys in the unit that were beasting me. It was my own superior. And so every day, I'd been in the military for, let's say, 6 years at this point, and I'd done a lot. And I want to say I'd earned my stripes. I was a lance corporal, and every day at 4:30, he would leave and he would make me stay and clean the gym every single day. And the Special Forces camp small, not a big military base, and so it was just me. If you're doing it in another base, you might have a group of the new guys doing it, but every day for an hour, I would just clean. And then after 6 months of doing that every day and just being treated like crap, I handed my paper in. I was like, I'm out. I say the military saved my life. And it was the greatest thing I did. And then the next greatest thing was leaving, because I'd outgrown the institution that had, and there's nothing wrong with that. It was just time to move on.
Yeah, absolutely. I can understand that completely. I feel like I would do the same thing. I've been in many instances where I was the new guy and got messed with quite a bit during different deployments too. That's the worst to do, is during a deployment, because like you're already focused on staying alive, and now you're focused on staying alive and staying out of the eye of the people that are after you.
Yeah.
So you mentioned earlier that you invested some money and then something happened. What ended up happening?
I bought a house. So after my first deployment, I had a bit of cash, and I was going to spend it on junk. I read a fantastic book called Rich Dad Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki, and it just completely changed my paradigm around money. So I put that money into a house. 6 months later, we had trashed the house, and I was just like, I'm out. I'm just a kid. I was 21 at this stage. I just wanted to have fun. So I sold the house, but I made $30,000 profit, which for me was more than half a year's pay for, and I was like, what? I've just got drunk each weekend and trashed the place, and I've made this much money without doing anything. So I bought another property, and that kind of I just fell in love with sort of investing, because it was, money was really beneficial, helped me travel, helped me build a business and things. So I really appreciated wealth. And I'll say this because when you leave the military, being a soldier sort of validates you, your identity. It's like who you are. And when you don't have that, you look for something else to validate you, to build your identity around. And if you can't find that, you can get very lost and confused about who you are and where you're going in life. So after the military, I sort of got into being an athlete, and I was bodybuilding, and I won champs. And so being an athlete was my identity. And then after that, long story short, I got injured and quite sick, and I was in this relationship that really messed me up. And after that, I never went back to being an athlete, because I was just a bit of a mental mess. And so I needed something else to sort of validate me and build my identity around. And because I had money, that became my tether to my self-esteem and my worth. But when COVID happened, that got wiped out. And I can tell you the details if you want to know, but essentially when the finances got ripped out from underneath me, that's when my self-worth really plummeted, and I had nothing else then to build an identity or attach an identity to. And that's when depression came in, the suicidal thoughts, because the thing I valued the most that kept my identity alive was gone. And I was like, well, who am I without that? But that's also when the spiritual awakening sort of came in as well.
Absolutely. What was that spiritual awakening like for you? Because I've had quite a few in my life, and mine look different than yours do.
I do believe that they never end. I'm really sure I'll never ever experience anything like that before. I feel like once you get the big one out the way, the rest are just like less intense, because you've sort of had that experience before.
Yeah.
But I was reading books about spirituality, and I was reading books about psychology. I was interested in all of that stuff. But a lot of the books suggested that to really find yourself, to find fulfillment in life, you had to go through the emotional pain that you'd sort of buried down for a lot of your life. In psychology, sometimes it's called shadow work, working with your shadow. It's the part of yourself that you sort of dislike, disown, and reject. And so I was learning about it. I wanted to live a better life. I actually said to one of my mentors, I want to experience the highest of highs as well as the lowest of lows, so that when I'm working with someone, I've been there. I'm not just from a book, hey, do this and your life will be great. It's like, oof, I felt your pain. Let's dive in. And so all of this was happening at the same time. I started to explore my own psychology, and this is when I realized that finances was validating me, and what I found inside was actually just a broken child. And that's debilitating. It's really debilitating at first. The liberation comes after. And so the more I explored my psychology, my unconscious mind, this is what I wrote my book around as well, is how our emotions drive our entire life. And until we can work through our emotional patterns, we're just really run by our past and our emotions. And so I had to face deep shame within me, like deep shame and feelings of being unworthy. They were all sitting there. Because the money had dropped, my self-esteem had dropped, and that's where the shame was sitting. But I also couldn't see a way out. I was like, who am I without my money? Who am I without my identity? And that's when the future then looked really bleak. So not only was the present bleak, the future was bleak. And everything from the past felt meaningless because I was like, well, it doesn't make me happy now. And so past, present, future, all empty, depressed, like heavily depressed. And because I couldn't see a way out, that's when the suicidal thoughts came in. And so I sat in that state for about 3 years. It was about 7 years total that I first sort of thought I'm depressed, like something's missing in my life. That's when I stopped being an athlete. Then I kind of got myself back, and then the money, because it was the money side of things, I was like, that sort of validates me. That gives me an identity. But when that was gone, it was that same depression, and but this time it was worse. And the reason it was worse was because I wanted to go into it. I didn't try and be successful again and be famous or succeed. I went, no, like that's just a pattern of behavior based on compensation. I was like, I want to go into this, and I want to go in as deep as I can. So I committed myself to healing as opposed to striving to be someone. And so it was just lots of anger, lots of frustration, lots of confusion, not knowing right from wrong, not knowing what to do with my life, where to go. And the questions on my mind were, who am I and what is the purpose of life? And yeah, Nietzsche, he's a philosopher, says the pain is the great liberator of the spirit, and I can attest to that. And then really, I believe that it's a reason why most people are living on the surface, painting a pretty picture maybe on social media, but behind the scenes, they're still not true to themselves. They're not happy. They're not fulfilled. And the reason is because most people are not willing to face themselves. They're not willing to face their soul, their shadow. Carl Jung, another psychologist, very well known, said that people will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own soul. And so I didn't want to do that. I wanted to be someone who did the work. And I think it's the most courageous thing a person can do is face your shit. And so I did it and I committed myself to it, and it was awful, it was painful, it was horrific. But on the other side, I found myself. Now people see all my successes. I sent you my bio, and they're like, oh, that's so successful. All of that was prior. All of that was prior to me finding myself. So it was like my biggest success in life has actually not been those things. It's been going through what I call a dark night of the soul or an existential crisis to ground myself in who I truly am beyond an identity of, oh, you're a coach or an author, you're successful. Like, you know what? Call me that if you want, but there's much more to me, and it lies much deeper. So, yeah, very debilitating, emotional, horrific. I lost a lot of friends. I thought I was having a mental breakdown. It was wild, but I knew because I'd read the books that it was actually just part of the process. And if I kept going, then I would come to a liberated state where I felt more freedom.
Absolutely. I find that a lot of society likes to run from those uncomfortable feelings. Like, you're talking about how you equated yourself to money and how you found your self-worth in money. And then when that was gone, like, who am I? Where am I? And then, we kind of, I know for me, I've picked up and I've done things where I felt uncomfortable, like to get that momentary gratification where I didn't have to think about the shadow work or think about the side effects of my actions. But I found that the most liberating thing for me was sitting in that uncomfort, sitting in that discomfort, sitting in the pain, and sitting in the displeasure, sitting in the nastiness of life at times, and really absorbing all of that. Because to me, it sounds like you found yourself in the darkness, and I found myself in the darkness, right? And it's really, I found myself not so much in like what I provide people, but who I am, at the core of myself, right? All the labels. I'm working on a book right now, and like all the labels that I put on myself and that the world put on me, that's not who I am, right? There's a layer, right? We start to unpack that and close the chapters on some other books, and we find out like we're not any of those things that the world has told us or that we've told ourselves, right? There's something much deeper. right? Something to the soul, like you talked about Dark Night of the Soul, right? Like there's something deep in the soul that teaches us who we actually are. And if you're not ready to hear that or not ready to see it, you'll never find it.
Yeah, I agree. And the big thing I wanted to say with what you said was by sitting in that darkness, it's you become in a way invincible because the soul is immortal. It's not like, it's there, it's always there. It's ever present. And once you're in touch with that part of yourself, in a way you become invincible. It doesn't mean you don't like feel emotions, of course, and sometimes they get the better of you. Great. But when you come back to that bit that's deeper, that's always there, it gives you a sense of invulnerability. And by sitting in, the only way you can get to know that part is by sitting in the fire of emotion for so long that you realize that you're not the emotion, that there is something inside that's witnessing the pain, and that witness, that awareness is your true self. And the only way to realize that is by standing in a fire for long enough that you can go, there's me burning, and then there's me, and that me can't be burnt.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So now that you've done this, like this shadow work and this deep internal soul work, do you find yourself living your life more soul led, where you listen to what your spirit and your soul needs, and will ultimately like lead you to a greater version of success?
Yeah. And I say that chasing success is really um, chasing validation, but pursuing something meaningful is true success. And that's the path that I promote, write about in my book. Find that meaningful thing, because if you chase glamour, if you chase the shiny objects, the short-term gratifications, um, Jim Carrey said, I wish everybody became rich and famous because they would realize it's not the answer. Uh, I know that, you know that. And so the answer is meaning. And so I pursue meaning. And, this is the blessing I was talking to you about, I think at the start of the show, maybe before, but I think the start of the show, where being in pain and having a tough time in life can actually be beneficial, because a lot of people that achieve that superficial success, they don't want to give it up. They don't want to give it up, and so they cling to it. But they don't get the opportunity to experience pain, which then drives them inwards to actually figure out who they are. And so I think there is a beautiful gift in experiencing pain, which some people that are so attached to the superficial pleasures, they never get. So do I live my life differently? I just feel more grounded and more at ease with who I am and where I'm going, instead of needing to be somewhere else to make my life valuable.
Yeah, absolutely. I used to surround myself with like a bunch of people, and I used to want to be the center of the party, life of the party, center of attention. And now in my life, I don't want that, because that brings chaos into my life. And I've created a life of peace now. And sure, there's going to be tidbits of chaos that like get thrown like stones at the house. But I've created this sense of peace in my house that like you walk in and you're like, oh man, where has this been my whole life? It's been here. You just, I like you said, people chase success and people chase this imaginary dream that they've created in their head. And I always, people say, "Aren't you happy?" And I'm like, "Yeah, well, in the moment, no, I might not be happy, but I'm peaceful, right? And through peace comes happiness, and then comes everything else in life. And so, yeah, for me, peace is the most valuable asset that I have, because if I'm at peace, I'm grounded, and if I'm grounded, I'm able to connect, and I'm able to connect with anybody, anywhere, at any time, and it's just great. So,
Can I ask you a question?
yeah, yeah, yeah,
I know you said you don't want to be the center of attention, or, it's not what you're pursuing. If you had an opportunity to speak in front of 10,000 veterans on stage and be the center of attention, is that a type of center of attention you would stand up for? And want to do?
I think that if I did that, it would be more so the approach in which I took, like the mindset going into it, right? Like I'm not the center of attention. I am just one of the 10,000 voices
Mm-hmm.
that are crying to be heard. Or, I am one of the countless veterans who have suffered from mental health disorders or suicidal ideations or attempts, right? I'm just one. Uh, and like, I guess in a way, like I would view myself as the voice for the voiceless, but I don't want to be the face. And I think,
Mm-hmm.
like for me, that's the biggest thing, and that's the reason why my logo. I took my face off the logo. I had my logo up, and every logo I've ever had is at the beginning of the show, and then it leads up to this one I have because I don't want to be the face. I don't want to be the center of attention. It's not about me, and it's about my guest, and it's about the message that's being sent. And if I put it out there, it's like, hey, look at me. I'm making this about me, and it's not about me. And much like with that question you asked, if I went in there with the aspiration of hey, look at me, look at how great I am, and look at all these nice things that I can say, I'm taking away from the message, and I don't want that.
If you, here's the reason I ask. People need a leader,
Yeah.
and sometimes that leader is gonna stand out. And I was just curious as to whether leading is something you would want to do, because the opposite to leading is fitting in with the crowd. And that's beautiful, seeing ourselves as equal. But if there's no leader, what can often happen is have you heard of trauma bonding?
Yep.
It's kind of like everybody complaining about their problems, but no one's leading us out of them.
Yeah.
And I realized this from myself as well, because I humbled myself, because I used to be really quite proud. But I humbled myself back to, John, you're just a human. And but I humbled myself too much, and I stopped leading because I had some wisdom that I could use to help people, but because I'd humbled myself so much, I stopped leading. And that was a part of me similar to what you had said, of like, I don't want to be the center of attention. That's how I feel too. It's not like I need to be the center of attention to be validated, but I realized that in order to lead, I probably had to be the center of attention in a way. Um, and so I gave myself permission to get back into a leadership position, which meant that in a way there is a hierarchy, which is I'll lead, but I'm going to lead with humility and compassion, as opposed to I'm going to tell you what to do because I think I'm better than you. I don't know if, yeah, I just wanted to share that.
So that actually, the last part that you said, leading with humility and compassion, that's how I approached my career in the Army. I got promoted all the way up to staff sergeant, and I was in charge of a group of people, and I got a lot of shit when I was in the Army because I treated people with respect and dignity. And I believe that there are human beings before they're a soldier, right? So like there's a whole set of emotions and a whole set of things that are happening outside of this office that I don't understand. And if somebody comes in and they're having a bad day or they're having a bad week, why am I going to punish them for having human emotions in a job where you're not allowed to show those emotions? So I've always led that way with respect and dignity and humility and grace, because that's how I wanted to be treated. And you're right. You're absolutely right. If you know being being a leader isn't a bad thing. It's when the power gets to your head, and you start to make it about you and like center focus. So yeah, no, I completely understand where you're coming from. So being being where you are in life now, and having your spiritual experience and all that, you've done work at home, you've done work in Australia and Bali. How have those situations helped you in your path?
Just to clarify the question, how have running those events and facilitating those retreats, how
Yeah.
have they served me?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I feel we learn equally as much from our students as we do from our mentors. So every time I facilitate or run a retreat, I learn something new, without a doubt. Even writing this book, for the last 2 years, I've learned so much through the process. I've recently had about 8 people read it and give me feedback. And even that has taught me so much. I'm going to rewrite a huge portion of the book because the way I perceived it was not the way it was received. And so it's just this constant journey of learning. And yeah, I have mentors and then I mentor others. And it's like through this chain, we all get to evolve. So I love teaching and sharing. I really love it. I love seeing someone have a realization that sets them free from something they've been trapped behind for so long. That Yeah, I love that, and that's what drives me, and that's what keeps me going as well. Is just that moment when someone realizes that they're not stuck or they're not trapped or they can make a change. Um, and it's not about, oh, it used to be about, I'm the man, I can help people. Um, that obviously is the most unfulfilling thing because it's just you're just always trying to validate yourself. So the ever since the awakening and getting back into running events, it's been it's just been a different energy. It doesn't look different. If you looked at what I was doing from the outside, it doesn't look that different, but the energy it's done within is different. There's a different, it's funny. I went through this massive experience. I was meditating one day and it was a long meditation time wise, but it was deep. And I had this experience of divinity that it just changed me forever. Going into that meditation, I was sort of chasing that experience in a way because I'd read about theologians had talked about it, yogis had talked about it. And I was like, whatever that is, I want that. And so I just was putting hours into meditation each day. And then one day I want to say it happened. And it took a lot of discipline. But after that, my nervous system was calm and I felt different. I felt grounded. And it was the 3 years prior to that moment, I had felt ungrounded. I literally messaged a male mentor and said, I'm so ungrounded, and you seem so grounded. Can you help me get grounded in my life? So that was a few months prior. I just felt ungrounded. Everything was I want to say rushed. I wasn't calm. It was frantic, just trying to keep my head above water. After that meditation, it's like the polarity switched and I was just at peace. And 3 people in the space of 3 months all said the same thing. They're like, you're just so calm, grounded, and peaceful. And it shocked me to my core because prior to that, I wasn't that. And then this experience, and to get feedback so quickly from different people, and they all said the exact same thing.
Yeah.
That was just mind blowing.
Yeah. And it feels good to get that validation that you just don't feel it, but you exude it, right? You exude that peacefulness and that calm and that groundedness. I can only imagine how that felt for you.
For 2 weeks afterwards, it was, I just knew I was radiating. I was radiating just love. After that, it diminished a bit because life was still life, and I had to get back into the chaos to a degree. But I always knew from that point on there was a place inside of me that was free. That was free from the fire of life. And so after that, that's when I really started researching what had just happened to me. Writing my book, coming up with almost like a roadmap to reach the authentic self. The book's called Authenticity: The Art and Science of Being Your True Self. And it's that understanding the psychology that keeps us away from being authentic. So, yeah, although I don't live in that state all the time. It's something I come home to, and I'm far closer to it now than I was prior to the meditation and doing the healing work.
That is amazing. That is amazing. John, I ask all of my guests this question because I find it's very important before I shut the show down. What are 3 things that you're grateful for today?
My wife, number one. She is just so great. She's my greatest supporter. We have so much fun together. So yeah, she's fantastic. I'm grateful for my experiences, all of them, my entire past. It's a blessing. Yeah, it's such a blessing. The good times and the bad times, they're all one time, which is categorized my past, and I wouldn't be me without all of it. So I'm grateful for that. And I'm grateful for you. I'm grateful for you. Man, I've just met you. I've only just met you, but I really love and appreciate you. I can feel you. And I love what you do. Not just the fact that you're helping me share my message, but that you genuinely care. So that's a rare thing. So I'm grateful for my wife, for my past, and for you.
Thank you, John. I appreciate you. And I'm grateful for you too. Thank you for sharing your experience with us. And thank you for sharing your morning with us. Guys, it's like 8 o'clock. It's almost 8 o'clock in New Zealand, and this man is up talking to me. I am so grateful. I am forever grateful. And just thank you for who you are as a human being. That's very important to me, to have good human beings working with human beings who need that love and that compassion and that empathy. And so thank you for who you are as a human being, John.
Cheers, Sean.
And everybody, I want to say thank you for being here. Thank you for taking a few minutes of your day to sit and listen to John and I have a conversation. And thank you for what you guys do for your communities. And until next time, love yourself, be kind to yourself, be gracious to yourself. You are loved, you are worthy, and you are worth it. Much love.